I am Jackie McFarland. I'm a case manager at the Fort Bend Center for Independent Living. The center is a nonprofit agency that provides individual and systems advocacy, independent living skills training, youth transition services, information and referral to community resources, and peer support services. We work with people with disabilities to become as independent as they are able to be and as independent as they choose to be in their homes and the communities. If you or someone you know would like to further discuss our services, you're invited to call our office at 281-980-2219. Our guest speaker today is Allison Schaberg with Consolidated Planning Group. As a parent of a child with special needs, Allison is very familiar with the many decisions to be made as it relates to the future of a special needs family member. Considerations such as transitioning, future care options, and preservation of benefits eligibility are a few items that require intentional evaluation. These are especially important if you have a child who may need care for the rest of their life. Please join me in welcoming special needs expert Allison Schaberg, who will explain how to successfully plan for your financial future. Allison, thank you for meeting with us today. If you have any questions along the way, please type them in the chat box and we'll try to address them as we go along, and then certainly at the end of the presentation. And at this time, I'll turn it over to Allison.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having us today. And this session is being recorded, so if anybody has to jump off or has any kind of calamity during the presentation, we will send an email out with this presentation either later today or tomorrow. We'll get that out to everyone. So thanks for joining us. If you're joining us for the first time, you've never met with Consolidated Planning Group or heard any of our other meetings, we really try to put out educational events every single week. And all of our topics are generally around special needs planning and considerations that families may need to have on their radar as it relates to special needs. And so, as Jacqueline mentioned, I am a parent. I am a parent of 4 and have 2 with special needs, one that is an adult and one that is still a minor. And I have worked with financial services and special needs planning for the better part of 26 years. So both personally and professionally, I live, eat, sleep, and breathe this. Don't ask me any questions about anything else, and I won't tell you any lies. But I do understand, special needs, and so we're going to get started today. So today, our topic is an ABLE account, and you're in for a treat because we're going to talk about ABLE accounts, but we're going to also talk about kind of a shotgun a handful of other topics that maybe should be on your radar, or some other things that you, I like to call them buzzwords that we hear over and over in the special needs community. So we're going to talk about a lot of those today. So Consolidated Planning Group is a holistic special needs financial planning firm. We custom design future care plans and overall plans for our families with individuals and loved ones with special needs. So should you need to reach us in the future, certainly feel free to reach out. So to get started, we're going to really be talking about an ABLE account. And an ABLE account is something that we've heard of before. It's called 529s. We've heard 529s over and over the years. But usually what we hear when we hear about 529s is 529C for college. And with the number of people that we have on here, some of you have 529C plans for your children. You actually may already have a 529C for your child with disabilities. Maybe it was established early on before you weren't sure if they were going to go to college or not going to go to college, or et cetera. So 529A was enacted into law in 2014. And so basically the 529A, A stands for ABLE, and these accounts are for individuals with disabilities, okay? And an ABLE account is something where basically there's 2 places that a person with special needs can have money above and beyond what SSI says you can have, which the magic number is $2,000 for SSI. If you have more than $2,000, then you could lose SSI and Medicaid. Okay. So a reason a person might have an ABLE account is because, of course, they need more than $2,000, and you can have more than $2,000 in an ABLE account, and it will not disqualify for SSI. So that's one place that a person with disabilities can have money. Another place that a person with disabilities that could have money that won't cause them to lose those needed benefits is a special needs trust. So we're going to hit on that in a little bit. Okay, so on as far as the ABLE account, how it works is the beneficiary is the account owner, and the income earned in the account is not taxable, and contributions are not deductible. Okay. And again, it does not jeopardize SSI. So in the event, let's say you have a minor child that has disabilities, and they've got, a lot of families create a savings account for their child. It's in their name. It could be at the credit union, what have you. It's not that you have to get rid of the account in your child's name. What it is that you don't want to have more than $2,000 in that account in your child's name. Okay. So if you have money in any variety of sources, it's all combined. So this could be grandparents bought them some CDs or some saving bonds or something. Sometimes grandparents buy things for grandchildren. Those all of those things count as well. Doesn't matter who purchased it. Okay. So also when it comes to this, there are special contribution and distribution limits. Because one of the questions that we get on a very regular basis is, why should I have an ABLE account and a special needs trust? Why should I have both? And so there are limits on what you can put into an ABLE account. So first things first, we talked about it has to be for an individual whose disability started before age 26. Okay. But the contributions are limited to $15,000 annually. You can put up to an additional $12,490 if the individual is working. But the limit on the account is a total of $100,000. So $15,000 a year is what you can contribute to this. And it can come from anybody. Mom can put money in there, dad, grandma, grandpa. The individual could be working and they could fund it themselves. The money could come from anywhere. Okay, but only $15,000 a year, and you can only have one ABLE account per individual with disabilities. Okay, so the cool thing about an ABLE account is it's not very restrictive. So it's about achieving a better life for the individual with disabilities. So what people like about this is that basically all things that could be considered achieving a better life for an individual with disabilities can basically be paid for out of an ABLE account. So a 529C, you can pay for private school, a percentage. You can pay for higher education. You can pay for college and things like that. You can't pay for tutoring out of a 529C, okay? But an ABLE account, you can pay for all things really for the individual's needs, okay? So this could be therapy, this could be care, this could be prescriptions, this could be like monthly rent, room and board, food and shelter. So there's a lot of things that you can pay for, but you can also pay for school. So if you have an individual with disabilities, we talk to a lot of families. They have kids that have high functioning autism, ADHD. They might be less mature than they should be for their age, but the family is still hopeful. We're going to get there. It might be community college. It might be a certificate program. It might be a transition program. They may or may not go to college. We don't know yet. So the cool thing is you can use the money that's in an ABLE account for college, but you can also use it for a lot of other care needs for the individual with disability. Whereas if you have your money in a 529C for an individual with a disability, and that individual with a disability does not go to college, and you take the money out of the 529C, then you're taxed and penalized, right? For not using it for what it was intended for. So one question that we always get, so before somebody asks it, I'm just going to put it out there right now. If you have a 529C for your disabled child, back in 2018, they passed a new law that you can convert your 529C to a 529A. But here's the deal, and this is super important that you hear me, and I'm going to say it twice. You can only convert $15,000 a year. Okay, so if we've got people that have, I mean, we've seen people that have several $100,000, $100,000+ in their 529C plans. You can only convert $15,000 a year, and the sooner you get moving that towards an ABLE account, the better, because we can't just do a big lump sum of $100,000 transfer to the ABLE account. Okay, so that basically answers that question. So one of the things, so as far as long as your distributions are for qualified disability expenses, they're not taxable, and earnings on distribution for non-qualified expenses are subject to ordinary income tax and then a 10% penalty, just like we would see with a 529C, or if you take an early distribution for an IRA, it's kind of the similar penalty and tax deal. So there's a tax-free growth on investments that can be changed by the participant twice a year. And so the other question that we get a lot is, what if my loved one passes away? Then what happens to the fund? Okay, so this is where it can be a little bit problematic, or it could be a little quirky. But one is that you can roll it to other family members who are eligible beneficiaries. Well, who is the eligible beneficiary? At the top of the screen, disabled individuals whose disability started before age 26. So while we do serve a lot of families that have more than one family member with a disability, there are many families out there that don't have two children in the household with disabilities. Okay, so when it comes down to this, the answer is how do you play the game when it comes to the 529? And it's basically having enough money in the 529 for what the needs are to pay the expenses out, and not putting a lot of extra money in there. Is basically how you play the game. Okay, so just because you can put $15,000 a year doesn't mean you have to. And most people's expenses are more than $15,000 a year. So there's no chance that they're not going to spend the $15,000. Okay, so another careful thing that you need to understand when it comes to the 529A is that states may be able, Texas can claim reimbursement for expenses paid like through Medicaid. And so one of the buzzwords that you may have heard before is a clawback or a drawback, or a payback, a Medicaid payback. That's one of the words that you guys may have heard before, and that is true with an ABLE account. It is not true with for a third-party special needs trust, which we'll talk about that in a moment. Okay, so qualified expenses for an ABLE account. So one of the things that we mentioned earlier, again, it was why would I have an ABLE account and a special needs trust? Why do I need both? And so the first thing is again, you can only have up to $100,000 in an ABLE account before you disqualify from SSI and Medicaid. And most individuals with special needs, on a very minimum bottom line basis of simply just $40,000 a year for 30 years for existence is $1.2 million. So we all agree that $100,000 for the overall long-term care of an individual with special needs isn't going to cut it. So that's why you need the third-party special needs trust. The second reason that you need that is that an ABLE account can pay for basic daily living expenses, rent, and mortgage payments, whereas special needs trust cannot. Okay, so a special needs trust can buy a house outright. They can own the house, but they don't pay rent and mortgage payments. So basically you have both, because one can pay for some things and other things can be paid for out of the other account. And that's the reason why you would have both. So again, most of the expenses that you cannot pay for through the special needs trust, you can pay through the ABLE account. So this is a list of what you can pay for, but the list is this looks like a short list, but when you get into the weeds of this list, it's very broad. When it comes to achieving a better life for the individual with disabilities, the list is broad. This is a short list, but personal support services, that could be transportation services, assistive technology. I mean, there's all kinds of assistive technologies out there, readers, speakers, there's all kinds of different things that are out there. Even the legal expenses that it costs you to get guardianship, if you have a child that needs guardianship, to get a special needs trust and some of the legal documents that you need in place, those can all be paid out of the ABLE account. Okay, and this looks like a more exhaustive list, the items that a special needs trust can pay for. Again, a special needs trust can pay for many, many, many things. And basically a lot of the same things that the ABLE account can, but the main thing that the special needs trust cannot pay for is rent and mortgage payments. Okay, so basically housing. So then I get the question all the time for kids, for families that have somebody that's in a residential care facility or a partial residential care facility, can we pay for that out of the special needs trust? And the answer is that's a gray area. It's very gray, and it depends on how the facility bills. It depends if they bill it as, medical care, or if they bill it as room and board. It's very questionable, and it's very gray, and each facility out there bills things differently. So that would be a question directly that would be directed to their finance office, for sure. So we definitely get that all the time. So when we're talking about special needs trust, I'm going to go to the next slide here. Okay. So here's some ideas, and we basically already kind of hit the high points on what a special needs trust can't pay for. There's different types of special needs trust. There's a first party special needs trust. This is money that is the individual's money. So the individual with disability, this is their money. Okay. An example of a first party special needs trust would be an individual. Let's say that there was a lawsuit, there was a settlement, some kind of monetary distribution. That would be first party. In my daughter's example, she gets a refund from a scholarship. So that is first party money. Okay. And the reason I'm telling you this, there's a lot of, kind of a lot of blah, blah, blah in this, but a first party special needs trust, a lot of people don't have a first party special needs trust. They don't need one. Okay. But the reason I'm talking about this is a first party trust, just like an ABLE account, has a Medicaid payback as well. In order to be qualified as a first party special needs trust in the eyes of the Social Security Administration, there has to be language in that trust that has a Medicaid payback. Okay. So again, a lot of people don't need a first party trust. Some people do. It just depends on your unique circumstance. But a third party special needs trust is also known as a supplemental needs trust. There is no Medicaid payback in that. So this is where, when it comes to funding care for our kids, so, we're talking about ABLE account, we're talking about special needs trust, but the bottom line is what we're talking about is funding future care for our children. And the truth of the matter is you can do it with current assets, your current savings, and that kind of thing. And you can also fund it through other sources such as life insurance. So many families fund their child's care just like they always have, out of current income and current assets. And when you retire, you would continue to fund your child's care out of current assets and income that's coming into the household. Most people are going to spend 25 to 35 years in retirement. Okay. And so what we find is that most of the time, the people, the savings that you have saved up over the years, what you have in your 401ks, your 403bs, and your other investment accounts, those are assets that you and your spouse are probably going to need over a 25 or 35 year period if you're retired that long, right? So then where do we come up with this money to fund care for our children, right? So, and the answer is oftentimes with life insurance. So basically, upon your death, you or your spouse or whomever, the life insurance funds the special needs trust. Okay. So basically what happens is the beneficiary on that life insurance contract is not, so let's say your child's name is John. It's not John. We don't name directly John as a beneficiary on your life insurance. We name the supplemental needs trust for the benefit of John. And so that way, upon your death, instead of the money accidentally going to John directly and causing him to lose SSI and Medicaid, it's going to go to John's special needs trust. He's going to keep SSI and Medicaid. And now he has supplemental income to offset his SSI and Medicaid, because we all know that it's not enough. $794 a month is not enough to live off of. So that way we can augment that. Okay. All right. So one of the things that we talk about in this presentation is depending on where you are in your journey. And anytime, again, we have a number of people on here. We could have, adult kids. Oftentimes we get a lot of people that have kids in high school, sometimes 17, 18, maybe they're 22, wherever you are in your path. One of the things that we do like to talk about is post-high school options. Educational options. We do have a Zoom event and we do have a recording on our YouTube channel about this. But what we want to share, and this might be something good to just take a picture of, is that there are a lot of really, really great programs out there for your student with disabilities, okay? Whether they're wherever they are, if they're very low functioning, very high functioning, there's different programs out there. Some of them are certificate programs, some of them are transition programs, some of them are degree programs. And most of these on the screen, they all have something called the Office of Disability. Okay, so our ODS, they have all these different acronyms that they throw around. But anyway, they all have programs in place to help you to find out what are our next steps. So whether your child is staying in the public school system until 22, or they're leaving the public school system at 18, wherever you are in the path, if your child's 14, 15 years old, start thinking about what are we going to do post high school. Okay. And then start checking on these programs and start checking on waiting lists and stuff like that. Sometimes not so much on these programs, but some of the next ones. If you're looking at partial residential care or residential care, some of these waiting lists can be 5 years and people don't realize that. So they start looking and they're like, oh, snap. 5 years. Are you kidding me? I was thinking next month. So, so get yourself on the waiting list. A lot of them require that you, introduce yourself to them. You do their tour. Some of them are doing virtual tours, et cetera, et cetera. But as it relates to putting yourself on waiting lists and things like that, go ahead and get yourself on there. You reserve the right to say no. Just because you come up on the list doesn't mean that you have to say yes, but at least you have options. And so we just like to put this out there because what we hate to see and what is a struggle for many is leaving that educational setting, whether it's private school or public school, and having nothing. No plan. It's video games, video games and sitting around and not a lot of interaction. It doesn't have to be that way. And there's other programs as well. Okay. Jacqueline, do we have a question? Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, not anymore. From Miss Morphe, she's asking for a list of the expenses that the ABLE accounts can be used for. Is that something that will be in the presentation at the end?
Yeah, in the recording that's going to come out, you'll have all these slides, and so that you'll get that list as well. And then also, we do have some other lists like this, and list of other care options that are available in the area. So I just put up transition and day programs that are post high school. So these are some, and this is not an exhaustive list. We don't work for them. They don't work for us. We don't necessarily endorse or not endorse any of them. But these are programs that are in and around the area that you may want to check out. So, as far as, transition programs and other things, some are private pay, some are take waivers and other types of pay. So you'll want to check those out. But again, more so than not, there's a lot of waiting lists right now, and they were on waiting lists prior to COVID, and then COVID made it worse, right? Because of the social distancing and stuff like that. So, but there is just a lot of things out there. So if you have a child that from a maturity level, that I hear this every single day in my practice, they're just not there yet. We're hopeful, we're optimistic, but we're not there yet. And so there's just a ton of great programs out there to help them get there, and to be there for them in the time and the duration that it takes to get there. Okay, so, and here's a long list. Again, this will be in the presentation. We can also send this out to, this is another list of partial residential options. We do have another presentation coming up. I'm not exactly sure when. It's in the next couple of months. 2 different presentations. One will be residential and partial residential that are private pay, and then the other one will be residential and partial residential that take waivers and other forms of payment other than private pay. They're vastly different, but we've got the websites on here. There's just a lot of good options out there. And we have another question.
It's an addition from Ms. Jansen on the Bridgewood Farms in Conroe, their Village Learning Center, and they're in Kingwood, and the New Horizons in New Caney are also options.
Okay, yes, that would be something I'd love for for you to put that send that to us on an email. We'll be happy to put it on the list. When we come across them, we add them. We certainly say that it's not it's not definitively an exhaustive list. These are ones we definitively know exist and are out there. We've had people tour them or things like that, so we definitely like to add to that list anytime we can, for sure. Okay, so this comes to, the things that should be on your radar as it relates to special needs planning. So this is kind of where we were talking about. We're going to kind of talk about, a myriad of things here. But really how to develop a comprehensive special needs care plan. That's basically what we do. We help you. We do a lot of listening about the planning that you've done so far and what is important to you, and then we can help you kind of develop a plan, and it's specifically tailored to you and your loved one and their unique differences and kind of what the expectations are for the future, etc. And we can also estimate future care cost. And so what does that look like? So if my child needs care for 20 years or for 30 years, we can help you estimate that and what that looks like, and kind of strategize with you on how to fund that care. So Texas waivers and interest lists, that is another buzzword, if you call it that people talk about all the time, is the waivers and the interest list, and the waivers and the interest list, and how far are you on the list? And the answer is 14 years away. Anyway, it's really long. It's a really long list, but we actually do have families that are getting services that have come up on the list. So you can get on the list through your authority, and if it's Fort Bend County. We've got people from all over the state, so I can't name all the counties. If it's Fort Bend County, it's Texana. If it's Harris County, we're talking about the Harris Center. It used to be called MHMRA. You can get yourself on these lists. CLASS has a separate phone number to get on the list. So you got HCS, Texas Home Living, CLASS. There is a yes waiver, and a yes waiver is something that I want to share with you because many people don't know that it exists. And yes waiver is basically, well, the last time I checked, there's not a lot of waiting list for the yes waiver. So if you have an individual like I think it's like 14 to 18 or 14 to 19, you've got a child that has, I call it the alphabet soup: ADHD, ODD, any of the depression, anxiety, bipolar. If they had some issues with school, if we have some of the aggression things and some of the other things going on, the yes waiver is a wraparound program, and it provides services for those kids that are at risk of being placed outside of the home due to their behavior, due to their mental mental illness. And again, Harris Center for Houston, Texana for Fort Bend, the yes waiver. So if you have a child that's struggling with those things, this could be runaways, this could be drug use, it could be fighting at school, it could be any of the alphabet soup as it relates to mental health diagnoses. They could be a really good fit for the yes waiver. Okay, so SSI and SSDI, understanding the difference and knowing when to apply. So we're certificate holders for Social Security advising. So SSI and Medicaid, what I want to talk about, supplemental security income SSI. Most people do not qualify for SSI now, because if you have more than $2,000 to your name if you're single, or $3,000 to your name if you're married, your child does not qualify for SSI and Medicaid because it's based off of your income and your assets, and basically they don't qualify. So what people don't know is that when your child turns 18, that it's magically based off of their income, their assets, not yours. So even though that your child still lives with you and you claim them on your taxes and what have you, when they turn 18, it's based off of their assets. So, as far as applying for SSI and Medicaid, we can help people apply for that. We do charge for that service. You can do it yourself. The Social Security Administration is not meeting with people face to face unless it's an emergency basis right now. They've been meeting by phone since this pandemic. You can apply for SSI and Medicaid over the phone. You can do it online. I recommend calling and scheduling an appointment for the month that your child turns 18. It's the month. So if your child turns 18 July 15th, call in April and schedule an appointment for July 1st, any day in the month that your child turns 18. But don't wait till July to call, because it might be August or September before you get an appointment. Okay. So you might want to call a little bit earlier and schedule a little bit earlier. The Social Security office that you start with, you typically stay with. Okay. So if you have friends that have a special needs individual that they've already gone through this process, and they particularly have a Social Security office that they've worked with that has been wonderful, I would start with one of the wonderful ones. Some of them aren't that wonderful. Okay. And you might hear that along the way. But they are trying, and they've been struggling, and they are working from home, and there's a lot of things. The other thing that I would say is, in the past, people have mailed documents to the Social Security office, and they seemingly always get lost. The word on the street right now is that if you are moving in that direction, you got a child turning 18, you're going to want to get the fax number for that office, and you're going to want to fax your documents in, because they go into a queue, a virtual queue, and they're being sent out more so than the mail is being sorted. It's not that they're not doing it, but they're very behind on that. Okay, so we talked about ABLE accounts, beneficiary designations. Again, we touched on this just a little bit, but one of the things that's a big deal is not causing your child to lose SSI and Medicaid. And how this can accidentally happen is people name their children directly as beneficiaries, or grandma and grandpa leave money directly to your special needs child. You didn't even know they were going to do that. So that could be a problem. So the way you fix this is you have a special needs trust for the benefit of the special needs child, and the beneficiary, again, is the third party special needs trust for the benefit of John. Is the way that you fix this. Another way to fix this is that you can have a testamentary special needs trust inside of your will. So basically, you don't have a special needs trust now, but upon your death, the special needs trust is going to form, and you can leave it to the testamentary special needs trust under your will. Is another way that you can leave it and not mess them up. Okay, so special needs trust and how to fund them. We talked about that a little bit. Start touring residential living facilities if that is going to be on your radar for your loved one, maybe around 15 or 16. Guardianship, power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney, and supported decision making. If I had a nickel for every time I heard that every single day, we'd be super, super rich. Guardianship is again, that's something that we hear about and talk about. You don't need guardianship prior to your child turning 18. You already have it, right? Your child turns 18. Some people, depending on the disability of your child, may warrant guardianship. They could be IDD with intellectual disability and IQ below 70, 75. There could be any other long list of disabilities that an individual could have that would warrant guardianship, that they're never going to be able to make decisions for themselves. They can't talk, or they have mobility issues. There's a myriad of things. So working with a qualified attorney on that to help you determine whether guardianship, power of attorney, or healthcare power of attorney or supported decision-making is a smart thing to do. The guardianship process can be started 6 months before the child turns 18. And I do recommend, if that is the process that you're thinking of, to start that 6 months in advance. A guardian ad litem will be appointed, and there's a whole bunch of process. It's an emotional process for guardianship to determine on whether or not the guardianship is in the best interest of the individual. We have a lot of people that have supported decision makings. It depends on which attorney you talk to on whether or not they like a supported decision making agreement or not. and then the power of attorney and healthcare power of attorney. So what I would say is, at the very least, the power of attorney and the healthcare power of attorney is a good document to have. Okay. And this is also true for your children that don't have special needs, that are 18 and they're going off to college. This is also true for that if they become incapacitated, that you can make decisions for them, those types of things. So that's a good thing. And if you have a child that is going to stay in the public school system past 18, the power of attorney and the healthcare power of attorney could also be helpful in those ARD meetings, the IEPs, and other things as it relates to guiding and navigating educational things for that child that's still in the school. Because technically, when they turn 18, if you don't have this document, technically the school could be hard-nosed and say, we're not going to work with you anymore. And typically that's not what we see. We don't see, we see schools that really do want to work with families and that are trying really hard. But it's just a technicality that if they called it, you don't have a leg to stand on if you don't have something like that in place. Okay, we talked about the post high school education options, and we also talked about waiting list for community based care. Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. We do have a question from
Sure.
Lauren and Miss Ann. Lauren's asking, I'm a 31-year-old with epilepsy and fibromyalgia. Do you think this program is for me?
So a 31-year-old, so it just depends if the disability started prior to age 26. And then again, it matters, as it relates for, if you're speaking of the ABLE account is the program for you. If you're getting SSI and Medicaid, then an ABLE is a smart option for a person to have. But again, the disability did have to start prior to age 26. And as it relates to the trust, again, anytime SSI and Medicaid is in the picture, then that's where those special needs trusts and those ABLE account is going to come in. So one of the things that we did speak about was briefly was SSDI. So people say, I get Social Security, and most people don't get Social Security unless you're retired or you're disabled. They're getting SSI, right? So Social Security is also known as Social Security Disability and SSDI. Okay, so there is a vast difference between SSI and SSDI. Okay, so as it relates to Social Security Disability, that is a work credit program. So most kids that are 18 don't have work credits. Okay, so they don't qualify for SSDI. It is possible later. So if your child is considered a disabled adult child, basically when as a parent, one or the other parent retires or is disabled through the Social Security Administration, your child will be entitled to 50% of your Social Security benefit, okay, or the higher parent Social Security benefit. It's called RSDI, okay, so 50% while you're alive. Once you turn on benefits, either you're disabled through Social Security or retired through Social Security, or their other parent is, then they're entitled to 50% of your benefits. So instead of the SSI being $794, maybe now they qualify for $1,500. So that it wouldn't be plus, right? So it would be reduced. They're not gonna you're not gonna make tons and tons of money off of SSI and SSDI. But at the point that happens, the person could switch over from SSI, the means-based program, and could switch over to RSDI. And then within 2 years, they're eligible for Medicare. And so the other thing that you need to know as a parent is if that happens for you, if you were a disabled adult child under a parent's record, upon your death, your child is entitled to 75% of your benefit for as long as they live. So even though you're gone, the higher benefit record, you or the child's father, they would be entitled to 75% of that benefit amount. Okay. So, all right, I think we've got a few more questions. Let's take them.
We do. We have another question. Is there a minimum to establish an ABLE account aside from life insurance funds?
So ABLE accounts, that's a good question. And ABLE accounts don't establish from life insurance. Special needs trusts can be established from life insurance, but ABLE accounts you cannot leave an ABLE account as a beneficiary on life insurance. So Typically, I don't really even know the minimum. It's probably $100 or $200 a month. It's not a huge amount as far as establishing an account. You don't have to like throw down $15,000 or $5,000. You can most people do a monthly contribution where they have a monthly amount that's just being deducted each month that goes into their ABLE account. But it is affordable for people to get started. You don't have to have a significant deposit to open one. So that is a very good question.
Okay, and one more question. Can you use the Special Needs Trust to fund the ABLE account?
Yes, you can. You can take a distribution out of the special needs trust and move it to the ABLE account. Yes, you can do that
Okay, great.
for sure. Okay, so we've talked about a lot of topics, and I always say, if you take a few good nuggets out of this, of things that maybe you didn't know before or whatever, things that you can implement, if it's nothing else than putting a note in your calendar for 2 months prior to your child's 18th birthday that you're going to call the Social Security Administration and schedule that appointment to apply for SSI and Medicaid, whatever it is. What I always say, it's really not about it's not about looking back about what you haven't done. I hear people say, well, I'd be embarrassed for you to look and see what we've done because we've done nothing, or we started this and we got pretty far along the way and then we put it on the shelf and we haven't looked at it anymore. We hear all kinds of stuff. And it's really, like I said, it's just not a matter of looking back. This is complicated. It's confusing and our lives are busy to begin with. We got special needs kids that need care, and then trying to navigate all of this stuff. I mean, I know personally, just even trying to navigate how we're transitioning to physicians, from pediatrics to adulthood with my daughter, that was stressful too. It's like all these things that we have this long list of things that we need to do. So give yourself some grace on that. We're here to help you. It's about looking forward. And so if you had a takeaway of something or you learned something that you didn't already know, then you're well on your way. And we're certainly happy to meet with you individually and kind of talk about your unique situation and help you develop a future care plan. We can certainly help you with all of those things. You can like and follow our Facebook page. We post our other events out there. We also have our YouTube channel. You can look for that out there as well. And we have a lot of our recordings of our other presentations. And then we'll send this out to you. And then as we have other presentations that are scheduled, I think we put out a monthly email kind of letting you know what would be scheduled for the upcoming month. If there's anything that you want to participate in, we certainly would certainly love to have you.
Okay, we have another question.
Okay.
From Vicki. She says, once the ABLE account is opened, is there a requirement for distribution of funds?
No. So like if you put money in there, do you have to take money out any given particular year? And the answer is no to that. But there is also for instance, yesterday, I actually want to share this because this is really, it was good information and it's good for you to know this. We had a question yesterday on a 529C, if can I pay for tutoring out of a 529C? And again, it's a gray area, and there's some ifs and buts if you have a special needs child and all this stuff, but the basic answer is no. You cannot pay for tutoring out of a 529C, but you can pay for tutoring out of a 529A. So, this individual said, well, I need to pay for tutoring and it's pretty expensive and I need to do it today. And obviously I can't get an ABLE account set up today. So if I pay for this myself, and then I open up an ABLE account and then I pay myself back for that amount of tutoring, is that an eligible expense? And the answer was yes, as long as it happens in that calendar year, the same calendar year. And it needs to be the same amount. So if you pay $8,500 for tutoring, then the check reimbursement should be $8,500. It should match, and you should have the receipts and stuff to prove that. But it is a matter of distributions, are paying back for distributions in the same calendar year. Okay. Does that do it for questions?
Anybody have any questions they want to ask Allison? Have a few more minutes. So go ahead and put them in the chat. or unmute yourself if you can and go ahead and ask. Allison, thank you so much. I have learned a great deal.
Absolutely.
Oh,
It's a lot.
I do have a question here from Meg. If I create an ABLE account prior to my death, can the ABLE account then be part of my beneficiaries? Mhm.
Well, so there's not really a beneficiary tied to an ABLE account because there is a Medicaid payback, so it would be tied to your estate. So if there was money left over after a Medicaid payback in the ABLE account, then it would go to your estate.
Okay, and a question from Dana. Where do you set up an ABLE and who manages it?
Okay, that is a great question, and it's one that we get a lot. Years ago in 2014, when ABLE accounts first started, everybody talked about that Ohio has the best one. Texas has an ABLE account. So we set up ABLE accounts. We set ABLE accounts up through American Funds. You can go basically through any state. Some of the state funds have limitations on how you get the money out of it. And what I mean by that, it's problematic. It's harder. It's more difficult to get the money out for a distribution, and you have to do it within the same month, et cetera, et cetera. So we're more of a fan of the ABLE accounts with the mutual fund companies than we are any particular state. I mean, people ask about Ohio. There's one in Ohio called the Ohio Stable account. So just because you live in Texas doesn't mean you have to have the Texas ABLE account. You can have any ABLE account. Okay. So we have we have some families that have done the Texas ABLE account. We have an ABLE account. That's not the route that we went. I mean, an ABLE account is an ABLE account, but some of them have more nuances and difficulty getting money out than others. So certainly, we can help you with that, and kind of share what we've learned along the way. We can help you open one, and we can give you information about what the other options are out there for sure.
Okay, great. And Meg asked the additional questions. So would it be better to set up the trust account with the ARC of Texas prior?
So that's the age-old question. So more of the families that we serve do not do the ARC of Texas and the special needs pooled trust. There's nothing wrong with that. More of the families that we serve have their own special needs trust, or they have a testamentary special needs trust that will be formed upon their death. So we don't have a lot of experience. We are actually going to be doing a meeting with the ARC of Texas on their special needs pool trust. But we don't have families that are in that trust at this time. They more so have their own trust. But we'll put out an educational event for that. So the answer is, should you have the trust before the ABLE account or the ABLE account before the trust? And honestly, I think basically what it warrants is a consultation. So basically, when we know a person, when we say we meet with people holistically, we do a lot of listening about what's important to you, what the future looks like, where we are right now, and we make recommendations from there. So to blanketly say you should do an ABLE account before the special needs trust or special needs trust before the ABLE account, we don't even know that you need that. We don't even know what you already have in place as far as wills and things like that. So basically, when we meet with families, that's where we can help you align your steps of where do I get started? Where do I go from here? What do I do? And honestly, if we meet with 8 or 10 people a day, the recommendations that we give would be different because everybody's situation is different.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions they want to put in the chat?
I don't have any questions.
All right, perfect. Well, I would just again like to thank everybody for taking their time, taking their lunch hour to be with us today. If we can be of assistance to you going forward, we're happy to do so. when you guys get your email later with the recording, it'll have all of our contact information and also have a link should you want to schedule a chat to talk about your unique situation. You can do it right through that email. And we're certainly happy to help you any way that we can. Jacqueline, thank you again for having us, and we
Very
hope
well.
to serve your families as well.
Thank you, Allison, for taking the time. Appreciate it. And thank you all for coming.
All
We'll
right.
close.
Thanks so much. Take care and have a great afternoon.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.